Cameron Champ versus Justin Thomas. Who has the most optimal swing? What's up, guys? It's your favorite QB coach. Let's go do this thing. Alright guys, so if you guys are new to Mike's OG Academy, we do everything that you guys need to know about golf instruction, whether it be golf tips, golf instructional vlogs, golf interviews, golf swing analysis like this. We do it here, right? So if you guys haven't already, hit that little red subscribe button and you guys are going to be notified every time we drop a video. Alright guys, so let's get into this analysis. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this. It's going to be pretty comprehensive. It's going to be a little analytical and definitely maybe a little bit on the advanced side. But I do think it's going to bring up some very important points about the differences between golf instructional methods right now. Obviously, there's a big debate between golf instructors right now. In transition, do you break the barrier or do you kind of pressure shift in front of it before or really early in transition, or do you kind of sit on that wall and churn? Is kind of a big debate right now. Which one is most optimal? Which one is going to get you the best golf swing, basically, right? So I think these players obviously represent this very, very well. Cameron Champ obviously being a little bit more of the rotational side, and then Justin Thomas being a little bit more of that traditional, breaking the barrier a little bit earlier in transition, okay? So the first part of this video, we're going to kind of talk about what Justin Thomas is doing in his golf swing, what he does maybe in terms of lower body movements, as well as kind of rate of closure ideas, what he's doing with his release pattern, and then my ideas on why I think he's kind of stalled out. Now, second part of the analysis, we're going to basically put these players together and kind of take a look at, first off, the rate of closure differences, as well as what they're doing from basically position 7, which is impact, through about position 9-ish. And I'm going to kind of show you guys why I think Justin Thomas's golf swing is going to, first injure him over long-term use of it, because I don't think it's supporting the lumbar spine as best as it can, as well as I think it's a less consistent model, basically. So let's get into it. Let's go to Justin Thomas first. So we're going to take him up. Quick little overview of kind of setup ideas. Obviously very traditional. He had a PGA professional as his dad, so he has really good fundamentals and a very, very overall great golf swing, right? Even though we're going to kind of be bashing on his golf swing in this analysis, I do think there's a lot of great points that you can take home from Justin Thomas's golf swing. So for those haters out there that love JT, I love his golf swing too, guys. Don't get me wrong, but I do think Cameron Champ's, in terms of the model of Cameron Champ's swing, is maybe a better model for in terms of optimal golf swing. Okay, so let's get into it. Takeaway, obviously very traditional. Great spot here. I know he does a lot of drills working on his takeaway, so obviously one piece takeaway, very, very traditional. Looks really, really good. Now, once we get to the top of his golf swing, this is where we're going to kind of see the first oddity in terms of traditional. He obviously gets the lead arm very far above the shoulder line, right? Now, I honestly kind of would rather see players do that than the opposite side where it's below the shoulders. But the way that JT kind of does it, he doesn't get a lot of depth while he does that, right? Depth just means that his hands right here are kind of close to his head, okay? To give you guys a little bit of a reference, if we go take a Cameron Champ's, we can see that Champ has a little bit more depth at the top of the swing, or i.e. his hands are a little bit further away from his head than JT's is in terms of left or right dispersion, okay? So that's all I mean by that. Now, because of his top of the swing position, we're going to see that JT has to come into the golf ball using a little bit different moves with his body to make sure that he doesn't get way on top of the plane and way over it and hit pretty big steep cuts, right? Which is not what a professional golfer typically does. Bubba might be the one Bubba might kind of do that a little bit, but anyways, we're not going to talk about Bubba in this analysis. So as JT comes down, we're going to see something interesting with his hand pat. Because he's so, I would say, has no depth, we're going to see hand pat drop a little bit more vertically down than out. It's still going to drop a little bit out, but not as much as someone who had a little bit more depth at the top, right? So if we take a look at his hand path, we're seeing that there's an element of out for sure, but it's definitely a little bit more vertically down than Cameron's going to be, and you'll see that here in a second. So as we get him kind of into this lead arm position, we can see the trace of his hand path. It worked pretty much vertically down the initial part, and then now it's starting to add on that little bit of out element as he's starting to rotate, right? So that's kind of pretty important. So basically what it means is he's really not churning in transition. He's not churning into this lead arm early in transition. He's more so kind of keeping body lines closed with his shoulders and then dropping hands down. Now his lower body is opening relative to that, but it's a little bit different of a move than Cameron's, which you guys will find interesting here in a sec. Cool. From this position, I would say his hands are maybe a little bit too far out in front of him for my liking, and he's getting into kind of that crashing and burning look to where he's going to get a pretty steep attack angle. Now, because of this, what you're going to start seeing is his heel is starting to come off the ground, and he's going to start extending in the lower body. Not necessarily the upper body, but in the lower body, which is a great point for a lot of you guys to understand. There's multiple ways for people to extend. You don't have to just extend both parts, or you can also extend just one part, right? So we're going to watch his chest and then watch his knees, and we're going to see that as Justin gets into impact, his chest is relatively staying in flexion or front bend while he's rotating, but his knees, watch his knees, are the ones that are extending, as well as his pelvis line is starting to kind of level out like this, right? Then as he gets to the impact, we can see that he has what I call would be kind of a stuck look to him. His knees have extended, his heel is kind of off the ground a little bit early. He's kind of got that Olay look that Tiger would say back in 2000 with Butch. And then as we kind of get him through the impact zone, right about here, I want you guys to take a look at something. We can see that there's a lot of wrinkles in this shirt. All that really means is that he has a decent amount of right side lateral bend, which is him trying to make sure that he stays on kind of center here. He doesn't move his head forward, as well as he doesn't want to kind of come out and early extend and kind of block shots out to the right, correct? So that's basically in a nutshell what JT is kind of doing throughout his golf swing. So he's matching up the top of his backswing position by doing some moves on the downswing. We would obviously argue it's a great matchup because he's a good ball striker, but in this analysis, we're comparing him to another player who is also a great ball striker. So we're going to see with tiny little details which player has the most optimal swing. So let's get into the first part between these two players, and we're going to take them both down to impact. Brief little kind of view of what Champ is doing in the downswing. We're going to start seeing him churning into the lead shoulder a little bit more. He's getting a little bit more of this look right here in transition. And as he does that, the club shaft is shallowing a little bit more. It's on a flatter plane than Justin JT's was at that time. We're obviously seeing that his heel is not coming off the ground as much, just because whenever the player has a little bit more of a flatter club shaft pitch or plane, obviously it doesn't make any sense to extend early because you're going to completely miss the ball, right? The flatter the plane, the more likely the player is going to stay lower in inflection, right? Sergio is kind of a great example of that. Cool. So as we get into impact, the two players look obviously different, right? We can already start to see the differences between these two players at impact if we kind of zoom in. I want you guys to kind of take a look at first the wrinkles in JT's shirt right here, and then the lack of wrinkles in terms of Champ's from this position, right? So if we look at the wrinkles, basically we can see that JT's is pretty much all the way up through the thoracic, even the mid-spine, right? And we don't see any in Champ's, right? That just shows me that Champ has a little bit less right side lateral bend look to him, and he almost has a little bit less of the shoulder behind the rib cage type of look than Justin has at this point, right? I.e., whenever the shoulder gets behind the rib cage, that's kind of that stuck look. And you typically get players who get that look whenever the lower body works kind of like JT does, when his lower body extends and then they try to stay in their spine angle by dropping the shoulder this way, and they get that right shoulder or trail shoulder behind the rib cage, and that's that stuck look we're talking about. Now, because of that stuck look, let's take a look at differences between these two players' rate of closure. So if you go a few clicks after the shot, we're going to see a huge difference in terms of rate of closure, and I'm going to draw an angle to use as a reference so you guys can kind of see the difference. So Cameron Champ's angle is a little bit more obtuse than JT's, right? All that really means is from a 2D world that we're looking at, JT has released the toe more than Champ has at this position, right? So what does that really mean? Well, that gets into rate of closure ideas. Everyone thinks, or not everyone, but a lot of people still think you have to really churn over that toe to hit a draw, because I know JT wants to hit a draw, and there'll probably be some people commenting below saying that the reason why he's releasing the toe so much is because he wants to hit a draw. Not necessarily the case. I actually know that Champ was actually hitting a draw with this shot. You don't have to have a high rate of closure to hit a draw. All you need to have is that your face angle needs to be pointing left of the path, and that's going to get you the draw, right? And that's how Cameron Champ hit his draw in this particular shot. So that's rate of closure ideas. I would argue rate of closure that is more so like Cameron's and not like JT's is going to be more consistent over the long run of a career. I highly guarantee that, and I'm going to be interested to see if these players keep playing at a high level. I'd be interested to see who has the better ball striker, right? Cool. Now from here, let's get into kind of differences between the body. We're going to stop right about here, and we're going to stop JT right in that same position as well. And we're going to see a massive difference in between these two players in terms of what their body is doing. So the first angle I'm going to draw is on the pelvic line, okay? So what does that mean? Well, that means that Cameron Champ's pelvis line is a little bit more at this angle, and JT's is a little bit more level at this point in the golf swing. So why are these two players' pelvis lines different at this point in the golf swing? Well, it's because the way they came into the golf ball. Remember, because JT had little depth and had arms super high, he kept shoulder lines closed longer, and he was crashing and burning with club shaft pitch being steep, so then he extended with the lower body, which then made him have to level out the pelvis earlier than Champ has to do at this position. Now, another angle I want you guys to kind of take note of is going to be the amount of right side lateral bend. So all these angles are representing and used as our reference points. That just means that JT has a leveler pelvis at this time and more right side lateral bend. Cameron at this point in the golf swing has a little bit more of a tilted, or he has right side pelvic tilt, or the left side is higher than the right, and he has less right side lateral bend at this position. Now, arguably, I would say Cameron Champ's model of swing in this position is supporting the lumbar spine a lot better than JT's is, okay? So JT, this is the whole argument I'm trying to make right now in terms of JT's going to be possibly injured in the future here, is that JT's model of golf swing is not supporting the lumbar spine through this crucial kind of in between P8, P9 position to where there's a lot of torque on that lumbar spine in this position right here. He's not supporting it very effectively as well as Cameron is. And the reason why is because JT made a different lower body motion, i.e. he bumped forward, kept shoulder lines closed, and extended with the lower body and tried to keep chest low by getting a lot of right side lateral bend. Cameron, on the other hand, didn't bump as much. He churned into this lead arm, right? He got more of this look, and then he could drop into right side lateral bend with the correct amount, and the pelvis didn't have to level out, and he didn't have to extend the lower body, basically, is what he did differently. Hence, he was able to basically get into a position that's going to support his lumbar spine more effectively in this crucial position, right? And that's a super important take-home point, I think, for a lot of you guys. And as we get through, we can see Cameron turning through very nicely. Then right about here, we can start seeing JT starting to release the upper body and kind of release through as well. Cool. So guys, even in this follow through, you guys can kind of see the differences between the two. I would still see JT has a little bit more strain in that shirt than obviously Cameron does. Cool. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a controversial analysis so far. I think you guys are not going to like, a lot of you guys aren't going to like the points that were made here, but I think they're very valid points. The first and most important point, obviously, is going to be injury prevention, because obviously you want to be injury free, especially if you want to have a long PGA Tour career. There's a lot of people out there saying that Cameron Champ's swing model is going to be conducive to maybe more injury than others. Is it going to be conducive to an injury? Possibly. I mean, the golf swing is a very unnatural movement that is not conducive for the spine, basically, right? So no matter what golf swing you have, you're pretty much going to have some chance of injury, right? But is there better models than others? And I would argue yes. And I would say JT's model of swing relative to a Cameron Champ's model of swing has a better potential for injury, right? So JT's swing has that better potential. Cool. Now, the second main point that was super important as a take-home point is going to be the rate of closure ideas. So because Cameron was in a different position at the top, he got a little bit more of this churning into the lead shoulder look and laying down the shaft a little bit more. He was able to get his lower body to work effectively to where he could basically be rotating through impact and not have to rely on this little flip move like JT is kind of doing at the bottom of his golf swing. Cool, guys. So hopefully you guys understood that. It is a little bit of a complex subject. I think it's super important for the better players, especially the younger kids out there who want to go play and have a long career playing professional golf. I think it's really, really important to kind of build a golf swing that has a speed, because speed is super important, but also has a better potential of staying injury free. And I think Cameron Champ's model of swing is a little bit more biomechanically sound, and I think it supports the lumbar spine a little bit better through this part of the golf swing than say a JT model or someone who bumps a little bit too much linear and gets this kind of right side lateral bend look that JT has, right? And I'll show you guys that one more time so you guys can see that. But I would say JT's look right here compared to Cameron Champ's, there's a lot less stress on the lumbar spine with Cameron's at this position than JT's, and it just has to do with the way that they moved into the golf ball as well as reacting to club shot pitch. Cool, guys, so I'm going to end it off there. If you guys haven't already, feel free, smash that like button, let me know how we're doing, leave me a comment, let me know if you guys like these types of videos, and as always, hit that little red subscribe button down there. Alright guys, best of luck and play some golf out there.